Alright guys, we're back with more Misericorde. Or Misericorde. Either way. I felt some small amount of relief that I was at the very least not completely mad. But then I doubled back. Could a ghost or demon not take a corporeal form? The monster I had seen the night before had certainly been solid. Neither of these ideas were particularly comforting. What's more, I certainly wouldn't make any headway on the mystery stranded out here. I stuffed this clue into my white stocking and began to hike myself back up the hill to the abbey. I had not fallen that far afield, but it was still quite a steep trek. I decided I would walk around the other way from whence I had come just to complete my impromptu tour of the outside of the abbey. It was actually a little more even and flat the further I ventured around this side, which was a relief. I was able to stick close to the wall. I didn't feel like falling down any more hillocks that afternoon. Hello. Oh, God. I jumped. I hadn't noticed a little square window along the outside wall of the building through which I could just barely make out Darcy's face. That face, man, and the way the window was positioned. Goodness, you startled me. Hello, Darcy. What you doing out there? Oh, I felt like going for a walk. I hadn't seen the abbey from this side just yet. Ooh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yes, just a whim, I suppose. It's giving me a sense of place, though. Did you fall over? Yes, I did. Oh, no. Oh, be nice. No, sorry, I'm not trying to be cruel. It's just that we've all done it. You've all fallen down this side of the hill? It happens to me all the time when I go hunting for mushrooms and so on. Ah, I see. I bet it looked rather funny when you fell, though. Did you roll? Yes. Good, that's how you stay safe. Really now? Yes, if you go stiff, you'll break something. Flora did that once. Oh no. It was fine, she's young, her bones are supposed to break. Good for the constitution. Well, I'm not sure if they're supposed to, but better to break something young so it can heal. That's right. Well, what are you up to? What room are you in? Oh, this is just a funny little window in one of the halls. Oh, I suppose I'm close to the cloister on this end. That's right, and above the croft. Fascinating. Buildings are strange. Anyway, I was just on my way back from picking some bitter vetch for the stores. Oh, should I be worried about our stockpiles? Oh, not at all, but it never hurts to have around just in case. That's wise. Well, I should be getting on. I should quite like to be back within the walls. Absolutely. She smiled widely and then disappeared from the window. The rest of the walk back was uneventful. Darcy makes everything eventful, though. When I finally made it around the cloister, I let out a weary sigh. My clothes had only just been washed and I'd already made a mess of them, and the tumble down the hill had left me feeling a little queasy and out of sorts. Hedwig? Oh, Catherine, hello. You look like you fell asleep in the field. Are you alright? Oh, yes, I just took a little fall. Well, at least it was down something grassy, not the stairs. Don't be cruel. I stomped my foot and puffed up to Catherine, who looked bewildered. Excuse me? Would it be funny if I fell down some stairs, Would it be amusing if I broke my neck because I haven't used stairs as often as you? Hedwig, you're being a touch dramatic. Oh, am I? Am I being... Blah? I had gulped a little bit of black bile once more. Felt dizzy. I thought she was doing that on purpose. Hedwig! Hedwig! She reached out to stop me from collapsing. Oh dear, overstimulated again today. I gurgled something unintelligible in response. Catherine hoisted me to my feet and began to lead me toward the stairs. Her nose wrinkled. We need to get Moira to take a look at you again, I think. Doesn't seem normal. Yeah, why the hell does she keep puffing out all these black bile, man? It's gross. It was perfectly normal for me. No, it's not. As I half-heartedly walked with Catherine up the stairs, she declined to crack a joke this time. I reasoned that my propensity for spilling black bile all over the place was just my punishment for breaking a lifelong promise to God. It didn't matter how noble the cause the Superior had thrust upon me was. I had been an anchoress, and now I wasn't. This is just how it's gonna be, I'm afraid. What, the vomiting? This is exactly what I was talking about. You're acting hysterical. I broke a sacred vow. We had arrived at the dorms. Catherine plopped me onto the bed but didn't let me go. Instead, she squeezed my face with her hand and bent down to peer at me. I'm no doctor, but you look ill. Just like she had done when we first met, she licked her thumb and rubbed it roughly against my face. And dirty, honestly. I hiccuped again and a little more bile oozed out of my mouth onto my hood. Stay put. I'm getting Moira. She let me fall into the pillow and left in a hurry. I groaned loudly, feeling more frustrated than unwell at this point. Wait, could she maybe have a concussion? Maybe? I closed my eyes just for a moment. Maybe she doesn't because she's not supposed to close her eyes. Well, we'll see. Hedwig. Moira and Catherine were looming over me, looking concerned. Moira. Oh dear, still feeling a bit off, are we? She was acting very out of sorts, and then coughed all that up again. Hedwig, is this more or less bile than you expelled yesterday? Less, I think. That would make sense to me. She's fine, Catherine. She's only adjusting. It's not, you know. Moira let out a gentle chuckle. It's not the Black Death, Catherine. Unless you've got some boobos? You haven't told us about, Hedwig. Boobos. Moira reached beneath my arms and rummaged around. It was so sudden that I wasn't able to react. I was even more taken aback when she moved her hands between my legs and squeezed my inner thighs without warning. Nothing. Catherine, you really mustn't worry. She's just not used to the air outside her cell. Bodies react strangely to changes in their environment, so it's highly normal. This was humiliating. I felt like livestock being inspected for ticks. She was very weak, not to mention, well, a little out of sorts. Her attitude was very strange. Catherine, I think sometimes you may just have that effect on people. Catherine looked affronted, but Moira simply took her by the shoulder and led her towards the door. She just needs a little rest again. I'll bring you some more of Darcy's mint later, Hedwig. And if you pile your clothes up, I can see to it that it gets washed. I grunted in appreciation. Moira gave me a little smile and ushered Catherine out of the dormitory. I shut my eyes, but unlike the last time I had expelled all this goo, I wasn't particularly tired. I felt humiliated, stretched thin, and emotionally exhausted, but not tired. My mind was running in circles, in fact. I opened my eyes once more. If I really was to rest in my room for the afternoon, I should make something of my time. I scrambled out of bed to strip down as Moira had requested, bundling my habit up into a ball and leaving it near the door. The shred of cloth I'd recovered from outside was still in my stocking. I hid it under my pillow for safekeeping. I got down on all fours to reach under the bed. Perhaps now was the perfect time to read that play Catherine the First had left for me. Have you ever read Medea? I did not make it through the whole play in that one sitting, I would admit. I found the whole thing intriguing, although extremely confusing. I feared that I simply didn't have room in my head for some of the knowledge required to enjoy it fully. These pagan gods and foreign ideals, they confused me. I assumed that there was a point to all that Catherine might have been able to teach me, but without her guidance, I felt lost. To be frank, the section I read was perfectly ghastly to my understanding. A jilted wife plots to kill her husband's new lover, and the new lover's father along with her. I suppose they didn't have Bible scripture to turn to in those days, so it was an interesting window into a world before the word. However, when the heroine's thoughts wandered to murdering her own children in kind to prove the cause as much pain as she possibly could, I closed the book. It was too horrible to think about. I'm not sure what I had expected, but in my memory, Catherine had been so excited to share this with me, suggesting that I would appreciate its contents. What on earth could she have thought of me to assume that I would have enjoyed this of all tales? I wasn't angry, I suppose. It was just a story after all. I just had no clue what to make of it. Really, it hurt most that Catherine wasn't around to explain what she had been thinking when she planned to give me this. I'm sure she would have had a good answer. I did eventually doze off after reading a bit of the play. It wasn't for long, however. Moira soon arrived to take my laundry away and provide me with some more mint. Since I didn't really feel like walking around the Abbey in my nightgown in the middle of the day, I was stuck in my dormitory. This would usually suit me just fine, although with nothing but a play I had my fill of to read, I soon became restless. Luckily, I eventually heard a knock on the door. Are you awake, dearie? Yes, please, come in. Moira told me you were feeling a little under the weather, so I brought you some sage water. Oh, how lovely, thank you. Charity set a pitcher and mug down on my small reading desk and sat down in the little chair. She poured a generous amount of the drink into the mug and handed it to me, which I accepted gratefully. This is very soothing. I've always sworn by it myself. Drinking it once a night would be dead without it, I reckon. Really? Maybe, maybe not. But I wouldn't take the chance and stop now, would you? No, I suppose not. Darcy isn't half clever with plants. Could well be that she's discovered a way to grow sage that'll make us last forever. Well, when we're all over 100 years old, we'll know who to thank, won't we? Charity chuckled and wagged her finger at me. Careful now. I might not be as far off from that age as I look. You don't look a day over 30, Sister Charity. I couldn't help but feel jovial around Charity. We had barely spoken, but there was an aura of kindness and warmth around her that I could sense immediately. Oh, she's the one to watch out for then. Ooh, watch it, Cheeky. Has Flora been putting you up to flattery like that? No, actually. Flora and I haven't spoken all that much yet, I'm afraid. She doesn't speak much at all to anyone, until suddenly she won't shut it. Comes with her youth, I suppose. What were you like at her age? Much the same as I am now, I believe. I was in that cell the entire time. Oh, of course. Stupid me. Well, you're remarkably well behaved for someone who hasn't spent any time around people. That much I can tell. Aside from all the fainting and puking? Who hasn't fainted and puked around here? It's like normal, huh? You got everyone good last night with that little prank. I'm surprised Catherine didn't keel over. We're a fragile bunch. Nobody here will judge you for that. And if they do, well, let her who hasn't passed down the Misericorde cast the first stone. I've been meaning to ask, what actually happens in there? You know what a Misericorde is, yes? In theory, I know the rules of St. Benedict are less stringently adhered to in there. That's right. You can have four-legged meat in there if you fancy. It's mostly for guests who aren't to be expected to follow the rules, but we get so few visitors, it's more of a little clubhouse for us. I see. You're welcome to pop in sometime as long as there's room. It isn't a den of sin or anything like that, it's just a touch more relaxed. Mostly girls play chess and complain about the superior. So it's like a break room. She let out a hearty laugh and leaned over to flick my arm. I smiled back. I didn't want to get into any argument with Sister Charity of all people, especially when this was the first time we'd really spent any time together. I would like to stop in to be sure. Only half the nuns can be in there at any given time, so let me or Marta know ahead of time if you do want to hang out. It's not a problem usually, but I do hate having to kick anyone out. Of course. Where does the other half usually spend their leisure time in the evenings? Well, we've got our own occupations, haven't we? Darcy's got her little projects. Margaret likes to go on wanders. Besides, it's not like the Misericorde is the only place we're allowed to relax. It's just the only place we can relax and have a spot of lamb to boot. What do you like to do? Well, Sister Marta and I will often sit in the cloister with some wine and gossip the evening away. There's a few wooden chairs down there. It's a lovely on summer nights. That sounds restorative. Not half. When the moon's high, you hardly need a touch to see. A torch, sorry. The stats are lovely to watch. Stars, God. I'll have to try that sometime as well. You'd be more than welcome to join us, I'm sure. Although, I worry we'd bore you to death with our old lady chatter. I'm not much of a conversationalist myself, as I'm sure you've noticed. Pah! You're better than Sister Angela, and that's all that really matters. Well, it's alright, girl, spit it out. She's rather mean-spirited, isn't she? Charity started laughing heartily. Goodness gracious, that's the kindest thing anyone said about her in recent memory. Well, Sister Angela is a creep and a busybody. If she's been bullying you, come to me. I'll sort her out for you. We haven't had any run-ins that dramatic, I promise you. Well, regardless, the offer is on the table. She was a right terror to Adela when she first showed up. Flora as well, for that matter. Though Flora might have brought that on herself just a little. I snorted laughing to my sage water. Just a little. Thank you, Sister Charity. I'll keep that in mind. There was a knock on the door. Charity held up a hand to stop me from getting up myself and stood to open it herself. Sister Angela was standing on the threshold looking particularly icy. Speak of the devil. Hello, Sister Charity. My ears were burning. How long were you standing there listening, you gangly creep? Not long. Your voice just happens to carry, and it would have been rude of me not to interrupt. Sorry, Angela. Don't you dare apologize, Hedwig. I've seen the way Angela treats you, and I know the way she treats all kinds. You have nothing to be sorry for. The firmest I've been with Sister Hedwig is admonishing her for running in the halls. Is she, for some reason, exempt from the rules? Oh, don't give me that. You've been staring daggers at her ever since luncheon yesterday. You're imagining things. I wouldn't be the only one. Have you found Catherine's cat yet? Well, I'm off. It was a pleasant chatting with you, Hedwig. I'm off to see Darcy. I have some questions about nectar for her. Angela sneered as Charity pushed past her into the hallway, but held off from saying anything in return. She didn't speak to me either. Instead, she simply dumped a pile of fresh clothes onto the dormitory floor and then turned to leave. Thank you. She did not respond. Well, I mean, if she's gonna be cold like that, then I have no doubt in my mind down the line we're gonna bond, and she's gonna turn out to be a really cool close friend of sorts. Maybe. In the hour or two I had free before supper, I wandered the halls and exchanged pleasantries with anyone who passed me by, but I was preoccupied. Supper tasted like ash. Why did I feel so wretched given that Charity had been completely correct? Angela had treated me horribly in my brief time within her reach. There was no denying it. From the way everybody else spoke of her, it sounded like I was not the sole target of her ire either. I deserve it. The suffering Angela seemed intent on inflicting upon me felt like appropriate punishment for all of my little sins. In fact, if that had been all that I had to endure, I might say that I had gotten off lightly. An anchorite, or anchoress, does not break her vow. It just never happens. As I spooned my meal into my mouth, I thought about these words. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of the heart. I was positively awash in sorrow. I was terrified beyond reckoning. And I was racked with a mysterious illness. One that did not seem to be life-threatening but enhanced my sorrows and fears thrice over. I was being punished. For the next few days I completed my tasks in silence and wandered the hall in the days. I accepted my due. At the night halls echoed with the familiar incessant scratching. I would stand at the end of the old hallway, torn between returning to the comfort of my cell and fear of the demonic symbol on the walls behind it. I must apologize. I don't remember anything worth noting for a little while after that. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding. Excuse me. I'm very sorry, my stupor lasted for several days. The superior eventually pulled me into her office and gently asked if I'd made any progress. I hadn't, of course, which meant the rest of the conversation was decidedly less gentle. Hedwig, I'm sure that I don't need to impress the importance of your tasks upon you again. No, not at all. It's just... The path forward seems exceedingly simple to me. You haven't even breached the topic with Catherine the First. How exactly do I do that without giving the entire thing away? I would have expected that by now you would have been able to ingratiate yourself to the sisters. Can you really think of no way to elegantly approach the subject? Not that easy. Of course it won't be easy. Speaking of the dead never is. But surely you can come up with a way to be elegant about it. I think you vastly overestimate my social abilities. It's hardly been a week. I don't mean to be too brutish, but you haven't been drawn and quartered by any conspirators yet, have you? You're not suspected of any ulterior motives, I'm certain of it. All the more reason that starting to press now feels so difficult. The spirit sighed deeply. Let's walk through things together. James told you Catherine would vouch for him regarding his traveling a cloak. Excuse me. I imagine there's a way to confirm this without revealing too much. How? I suppose you could ask about Catherine the First, generally. Respectfully, of course. And then you could, I don't know, mention you heard something about the cloaked villain arriving that morning. It's better than nothing. Sounds like you've thought about this. Maybe you should ask her. You're her superior after all. I am your superior as well. Of course, I didn't mean... And I could not ask her for that precise reason. I'm in charge of this place and therefore everyone has their guard up around me. That doesn't make any sense. It is the way of the world. Being in charge is often more work than being charged. It is exhausting. But they'll trust me? I don't think anyone here would confide in me so readily. It is more likely they would speak to you openly, yes. Or at the very least, they may be less inclined to choose every word so carefully. I just don't know. Hedwig, you met James. You saw his suffering. I did. And perhaps they have not shown it, but the sisters are suffering as well. Bringing the truth to light will help to heal everyone. It will fix everything. Well, not the accused. I just want the truth. If the sisters are keeping secrets, it could well be that they are hiding the truth out of fear rather than malice. The cloud must be lifted, for everyone's sake, and for Catherine II's. I wish people could stop calling her that. It doesn't feel right. Catherine II? I assure you, I mean it with the utmost affection. She took to it wholeheartedly. Her and Catherine I, they played some sort of game for it. It is a series of chess games if I recall. Ah, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at this point. It's exceedingly a popular game. It's just not for children, if that's your apprehension. I wouldn't say I have any apprehension. I mostly just find myself frustrated by its use as a sort of language all its own. I think I was expecting the years and years of reading scripture would have been enough to prepare me for speaking in Abbey. Interesting. You know, I actually find it surprising none of the books you had in your cell mention chess. It feels very ode to me. There's so much written about it. As you pointed out, it weaves through every conversation. I've known about it my whole life. It's very frustrating. It's more than just chess. I don't feel like relating to these women at all. What if I taught you? What? Chess. Would you like to learn how to play? I wouldn't want to impose. Don't be silly. It's a game. It's not an imposition in the slightest. Besides, if it'll help build your confidence up somewhat. Spear got up from her seat and walked over to a shelf in the corner, retrieving a large wooden box. She heaved it onto her desk and opened the clasp, revealing an impressively polished chessboard. She carefully laid this board on the desk and beckoned me to bring my chair closer. She began removing beautifully carved pieces from the box and placing them on the board. Some were brilliant white and others were tinted with a red hue. Ivory. Aren't they lovely? They're incredible. Now these common ones, that's right, the smaller ones, those are the pawns. They get lined up in the front like this. They look a bit like thimbles. They do, don't they? Line them up in a row here. What does that one on the horse do? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to acquaint you with the most important pieces first. This one here is the king. I'll spare you the details of my first game. Needless to say, I did quite terribly, although not for lack of trying. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around it. It was interesting though. It made me realize that I couldn't remember playing any games with anyone else before. I had little rituals and I performed in my cell, and I suppose you might consider games. I'd commit the words I was studying closely to Lectio Divina, and then I'd see if I could make those passages and phrases again with words I wrote while transcribing new Bibles. What? Does that not count as a game? I'll agree that it is different. You can play a game by yourself, but it's hard to consider that competition. The spirit of the whole endeavor is something different entirely. I sound just like Sister Adela, don't I? At the very least, playing chess with the superior was enlightening. I finally grasped why playing so-and-so moves ahead was such a helpful phrase. Unfortunately for me, I could barely think through the move I was making, let alone what I'd do in the future. I believe that's checkmate. Ah, so it's over? Don't be discouraged. It was your first game. You did admirably, considering. Thank you. I'm more than happy to play with you more in the future if you'd like. But promise me you'll ask Captain about James's desk cloak one way or another. You made a promise to him after all. And I think that both of us have an unspoken promise to keep for Catherine II's sake, don't you? I'll make sure to speak with Sister Catherine. Good girl. I'll summon you again in a few days' time. She had been gesturing to me with my defeated king piece throughout this exchange. With a flick of the wrist, she placed it back into the sturdy box along with the other pieces. I stood up to leave and bowed my head. Thank you, Your Reverence. Now, we spoke of this. Yes, of course. Until next time. Excuse me, Superior. She nodded and returned to tidying up the chessboard. I left the room. It was mid-afternoon. I remember the sky looking cloudier than ever, as if the fog I had seen surrounding Limbaro Tor had encroached around the abbey itself. What a strange place this is, I promised the Superior I would speak to Catherine, but I admit that I was reluctant to run straight to her all the same. If she came to see me, she came to me. I would need to bring that topic up naturally. There was no use chasing her down. I decided to clear my head with a stroll through the gardens. My stupor had not cleared completely, but I at least had the energy and desire to be amongst the flowers. It was a reassuring feeling. It had been a few days since I had felt the capacity to want. Even with gray skies above, the garden was jewel. The flowers were fewer than I imagined they might be in spring, but nonetheless the bushes, hedges, and herbs were a welcome and inviting sight. I heard rustling up ahead. To my delight, a black cat eventually emerged from the bushes. Uh-oh. It looked at me briefly with its big moony eyes. For a moment, I forgot all about my troubles. I stepped forward to coo at it. It looked at me inquisitively. But a sudden sound from the bushes startled the poor thing. It scampered away, leaving me somewhat disappointed. Ah. A figure emerged from the bushes next to me. Sister Angela? Did you see it? The cat? No, the cow. She looked entirely ridiculous. There were twigs sticking out of her hood from her attempt to squeeze through the bushes, and she was breathing heavily. I suppose she must have been chasing the cat for quite some time. And of course I met the cat. Oh, yes. Which way did it go? It sort of scurried over that way. I gestured towards the edge of the path. I was trying not to giggle at Angela's misfortune, especially given that thinking about the animosity between us had put me in a daze for half a week. I see. She glanced in the direction I had indicated, then sighed and stood up straight. If you find another opportunity, do try to seize it. Cats have no business here at the Abbey. Why not? Does it matter? I know you're not used to being outside of your cell, but I would have thought obedience would not be so foreign a concept. I am the prioress, and that should be reason enough. Why do you hate me so much? Angela was busy removing debris from her hood and cowl, but I could see her arch her eyebrow even higher than I was used to. I don't hate you. Well, it certainly seems like you do. I should have perhaps saved the confrontational energy for questioning Catherine. But seeing Angela so out of sorts had, I just admit, urged me to act on the feelings that had been brewing inside me for the past several days. That's funny. You know, I could ask you the same question. I seem to recall that I walked in on you being incredibly childish in your estimation of me. That was Charity. She egged you on. Don't be pathetic. Own your words. You have been very cruel to me since we first met. When you ran straight into me, that was a mistake. Yes, one you have made no effort to correct, it seems. I seem to recall that you barreled into me later the same day. I don't hate you, Sister Hedwig. I simply find you tiresome. I'm exhausted by what you represent. I wish you would believe me when I say I'm not after your job. I have no interest in running the Abbey. Or any Abbey for that matter. Even if I did believe you, which I am not saying I do, that wouldn't comfort me so much at all. Succession seems to be the Superior's plan for you, even if she hadn't told you. I am the new chronicler, that's all. Yet you seem to leave your job quite early each day. I'm not a terribly prolific writer, not yet. This was one of the first times Angela hadn't had a retort ready to fire back at me. I was so surprised it almost knocked me off balance as much as piercing the reply would have. Anyway, for my part, I don't hate you. I'm afraid of you, I think. That's good. That means you have not yet abandoned all respect for authority. How perfectly cruel of you to say. This is exactly what I mean when I ask, why do you hate me? And once again, I must say, I do not hate you. I hate your disregard for natural order of things. I hate that, once again, I have been saddled with unruly children to rear as my own because the Superior has no interest in doing it herself. I am not a child. You are a babe, not 2 weeks out of the womb. You weren't alive in that cell, and choosing to break that seal is a grave sin all its own. By estimation, you need my help more than anyone here. Then help me. I do not revel in my sins. I'm not proud of them. What help can you offer me beyond venom? Do you know what this place is, Hedwig? Limbarrow Tor is not a normal monastery. Since you've noticed, even with your complete lack of worldly experience.